Hi and welcome to the channel. Today is day 10 of day by day strategy for mains 2025. Today the prelims result got out. Congratulations to people who cleared and to the people who didn't. I've been there, I've survived that, you will too. So what now? Due to the results being out, I have changed today's topic, and what we are going to discuss now is how to change your strategy for the upcoming 70 days according to your result. Why I'm saying changing your strategy? It's because I disagree with the usual advice given. The usual advice for people, whether they've cleared the prelims or not, is to give the mains exam as if they have, so that they get a way better experience of handling the exam timings, the pressures, and maximum utility of the next 3 months. Because to be frank, the amount of productivity you show when the exam is near is nowhere near what you do when you have a 365 days stretch to complete it. This 3 months you can accomplish way more than you could in the next 1 year. So it's a sound advice to prepare as if you were giving the mains exam. But there is one difference. There is one thing where I disagree, and I'm going to talk about that as we continue in the video. First, some of the things that are common to both. Today is day 70. From today 70 days are left. If we remove today, the question becomes, what now? How are you supposed to proceed now? What I'm going to discuss is a bit of a generic advice which has to be tailored to your specific needs. I'm going to explain how, because nobody is a better judge of your own capabilities than you. I've already said on the day 1 that you need to be able to make a SWOT analysis of your strengths and weaknesses, so that you can better assess and curtail your own syllabus accordingly. Today I'm going to go into it a bit more. 70 days to mains. So everybody knows this, optional is the most important paper now. 500 marks are at stake. This is where you show your strengths from other people, where you specialize and where you can shine. So optional. From here I changed my strategy a bit from others. The second most important paper according to me is an essay. For an essay, the strategy is very simple. If currently you are able to write 2 essays on Sunday, I think you are in a good position. It's now more a question of how to improve rather than what to write. So every Sunday giving an essay exam should be sufficient, obviously with getting them checked so that you can know how to improve. If you are not able to write a complete essay within the time limit, then you need to step up, maybe write more, 2 or 3 times a week, because I think essay is one of the most scoring papers there with the least amount of work required. Why I say that? Because most of the data that you have in essay you already learn for other GS exams, for your optional, for ethics, for GS 1, 2, 3, for your prelims. So data wise you have already learned it, you don't need to prepare anything. Secondly, when you write for answers for whether for GS, for ethics, for your optional, you are already learned how to structure. You just need to be able to now use that structure in a larger format. That's it. Which means this paper requires writing and thinking practice, not anything else, in the sense of you need to learn more things or read more books. So I consider it ROI wise a very good preference, especially because if you write a decent essay you get more than average marks, which can be harder in other paper. Thirdly, why I like the essay paper is because it's going to be random for everybody. It's going to be hard for everybody. What you should be good at is able to think properly. I mean able to handle your anxiety, because essay is the first paper. A lot of people are very nervous on the first day of their mains and they fumble a lot. So if you can manage that part, you can score good in this paper. I consider it high priority, but how much time you do it depends on how much you already can write. So ROI wise, I like this paper a lot. Now the next paper, there is ethics and there is the rest of GS 1 to 3. Why I say that? Because ethics you are completely unfamiliar with. Most of this portion of the exam you are already familiar with. You have more or less learned how to deal with these things in your prelims, but for ethics you are completely unfamiliar with, especially if not prepared before. This becomes an important paper. Secondly, why it's important? Because if luck goes with you and if you are able to write the whole paper, you can score good marks. Unlike GS 1, 2, 3, this paper has the potential for you to score better than average, depending on your ability to finish and understand the paper and a bit of luck. The last is obviously the GS. In GS also there is a priority. Now this priority depends a bit on you. It's an accepted fact that GS3 is the least scoring of the 3 GS. And this despite the fact that some of the portions of this paper are predictable, but still most even toppers will score low marks in GS3. Now it comes to GS1 and GS2. This what you score in this actually depends more on your background than anything else, whether you're strong in history, geography, society, or whether you're strong in politics, polity and governance. That can depend a lot on your background, your optional, etc. But these are scoring paper. But see, the problem with GS is that it's very hard to score above average marks. If you go by the 80-20 principle, it's possible to easily score average marks in these 3 papers, which is what most people aim for. Where you excel at or where you go better than others in these 3 parts. And that's true for everybody. What I would suggest in different advice to everyone else is how much time you give to the paper. As I said, for essay, increase your time if you're not able to finish essays completely 2 essays in one sitting within the time limit. Obviously quality can always be improved, but first we have to focus on whether you're finishing it up properly and writing all aspects of the essay within it. Same for ethics and optional. Ethics, I do have one caveat. Ethics has a bit of luck involved. Yes, you can score very good in ethics, especially the section A part, because I think section B can be repetitive for a lot of people and too lengthy for others. So I don't consider this to be where you excel. I consider section A to be where you excel. This maybe you can get average or slightly above average. This you can really excel or shine with showing different way to answer your questions, etc. So till here the strategy was same for people who have cleared the exam or not cleared the exam. The difference for people who haven't cleared comes at this point. See, people who have cleared the exam are suddenly realizing they only have 70 days now left. They are under tremendous pressure. And what that leads to is that you only look for topics or techniques which are safe. You don't experiment. Whereas people who haven't cleared, in their mind, yes, they are sad, but they also in their mind have an year ahead of them. So what I would suggest for people who haven't cleared is start experimenting. Take risk, because for you this is a mock that you're taking seriously, but a mock nonetheless. For the final paper, see some of the things that you could tweak for the future and see how it worked. I know UPSC is not checking your paper, so you cannot see how well each tweak worked, but some things can work. Let's say that you for this paper, rather than the accepted strategy, you decided that you would rather focus on GS 1, 2 and 4 and focus less on optional. I'm not saying you to do that. I'm saying based on your strengths and weaknesses, you think you can get average marks in your optional and better marks in the other GS. Very hard thing to do, but you believe that, let's say. So experiment on that. Or let's say that if you believe that if you give way more time to essay than your ethics exam, maybe you can do that. Or there is another strategy a lot of people take is they do not practice GS 1, 2, 3 at all. They do practice answer writing, but they don't study for these subjects separately, and they only focus on these papers, these 3 papers. So see what kind of strategy can work for you and work accordingly. Another thing that you can experiment example is how you write answers. For example, there is something of a debate always going on whether you should go for few excellent answers and leave those you know barely, or a lot of average answers and some excellent answers. You can experiment with that aspects also. Try giving the paper that way and see what comes up. People who have cleared prelims do not have the mind space to do such experiments and fine tune their preparation. You do. I will come up with more examples of the kind of experiments you can do. These are just from the top of my head. So for people who have cleared prelims, your biggest issue right now is going to be the amount of pressure that you're feeling. Suddenly they are realizing that only 70 days are left and you have not prepared anything, or maybe some people have prepared and others are feeling left out. All of that is normal. What is important right now, what changes the game for you right now, is ability to handle that pressure and work around it. First is pressure handling, as always, but more so now. The second important point is time management. Everybody says that, but I'm saying it in a different sense. Please understand that you are already sprinting till prelims. You are in a lot of pressure and you have not decompressed from that. If you think you can stretch the same way the next 70 days, that is not going to happen. You need to be able to relax. I'm not saying take days off at times, you don't have the time, but for every 7 to 8 days or 10 days, take half a day off so that your mind gets some space to relax and recuperate. That's very important. Yes, the last 1 month is going to be very stressful, but focus on that. Third thing, start writing. That's it, full stop. You don't need to be prepared for any topic. You don't need to know any topic. Start writing answers. The art of how to write, whether you know the subject topic or not, is more important than knowing the topic and then guessing how to write. Start writing right now, whether you know the topic or not. I have made the mistake. Hundreds, thousands of students have made this mistake. We think we will learn the topic, we will master the topic, then we will write. No. Start writing right this second. Full stop. These are your top most priority here. Tomorrow I will discuss how you can optimize your optional exam. For now, this is a congratulation and maybe take an hour or two to celebrate. Or actually this is late. Sleep. You need to start working from tomorrow. Now, I will discuss some of the topics that we had planned for today. Some I will shift to tomorrow. The newspaper part. So what I realized yesterday was I did tell you how to narrow down news that is important for you, how to identify that news, but I did not teach you how you could incorporate into your notes and how do you reduce that news. Let's say you think that an article is important, but the whole article cannot be copied or written. You only need a few words in your notes. So how do you arrive at those few words? How you incorporate that into notes, I will take tomorrow. Today I will just discuss how you arrive at those notes. Otherwise this video will get too long. So let's get to today's paper. What I've done is I've already marked in my first reading what I would have thought important from a UPSC perspective. Just from a cursory glance, these things or these topics looked important. And what I will show you now is how do you whittle this down? How do you reduce it to words from articles? So here goes. So one is, right off the bat, we have had a new deal with United Kingdom and the EU deal seems to be about to finish. These are important from the perspective of GS to international relations. And you have a tendency to include all these data points in it, especially this one. This continues on page 2. Yeah. Let's see. This feels important. There is what are the topics on which India and EU etc. are negotiating? What are the data points? For example, these data points feel important because they're so up to date. They are useless. Completely useless for you. India and EU are still talking. As long as you know these data points, what these mean, you are okay. As far as the India-UK deal is concerned, every newspaper magazine has a dedicated page on it. Take it from there. You don't need data points from here. You do need to read this. You don't need to write anything from it. On the first glance, this felt important. It is not. Similarly, the Indus Water Treaty, same point. There are so many data points, so many discussions, so many how debates etc. are going on. Even Indian Express has a separate 1 hour video something on it. You don't need any of this. You read this so that you know if there is any new argument or anything that resonates with you. You don't need anything else. Again, every newspaper magazine has a separate article on it, from its evolution to its current status. Everything you need for this is already there. This topic is also important from a GS2 perspective because they have already asked it before also. This is a topic that I would say. Now let's go to the third one. Recount caste, earlier data old. Now caste, we are already studying society, so we think this is an important point. There has been a question on this, so we think this is an important point. It isn't. Read it. Yes. One second. Yeah. Read it. There to understand the topic, to understand what are the debates going on. That's it. There is no data point that you require from it. This is also a read-only article. Only on the face of it, it looked important. What I will take away from this page is this. Why? Because it's a very good example for the women heading. First woman ADC to president, you need to know the name. A very, very easy way to get a good mark or a standout point in your changing role of woman or something point. Similar can be used obviously in the armed forces part also. 2 or 3 places where this could be used. Similarly is this point. The Operation Sindoor address. You can use them also. I would suggest learn at least this name, the woman of the first woman ADC, name of the first woman ADC to president. A very easy way to get points. So this is the first news that we could have used. Again, here you only need to know the name of the woman. That's it. And obviously, if you read it, you will know what's an ADC and where they come from. They have not asked anything from this topic till date. You have read this newspaper article. That is sufficient. You don't need to make notes from it. Just the name of the first ADC. Okay. Nothing on this page. Nothing on here. Let's go to the editorials. I don't think there is anything else that is. Yeah. So let's say the editorial. We had read this news yesterday also about the Citizenship Act and Assam, and I had mentioned that Citizenship Act is important from the perspective of GS2, but again these data points aren't. What I would suggest is they have mentioned the name of the Supreme Court judgment from 2024. If you can manage to get the name of the judgment, but apart from that nothing else is important. What I would suggest is this part. Read this properly. Why? Because it's a very good example of how you could have written a conclusion from here till here. Till shortcuts. Not saying copy it word to word and then use it everywhere, but maybe read through it once or twice so that you understand how a good conclusion could have been written. This is also a good article on keywords, porous borders, persecution, possibility of community profiling, bracketing innocent people. Now these are genuine issues. Although most coaching magazines will have these issues, I would say copy this. Why? Because I really like the phrasing of it and the wording. So you can save it to be used later, but only this part. And the remembrance that there is a 2024 Supreme Court judgment. That's it. Now let's see. Old continent rising. Now this feels very important from an IR perspective. We discussed this on the first page also. Let's not. Only thing I can say is these two words, and these two only to read during the paper, not to write them down. I like the wording here. Again, you don't need to make notes from it, but the wording was very nice. If it comes from India-South Africa relations, then maybe you can use something like this, but you don't have to copy it, you don't have to rote learn it. You just see the phrasing, and while you were reading the first time you thought this was a nice line. You don't need to make notes of it. As I said, we are whittling down now. This was when I read it the first time, I thought these things were important, but they weren't. Chenab Bridge, again everything in already in news magazines. You can read this. That's about it. No need for this. You can read this. Okay, this is an inclusive growth. Now this is an example of what feels, I'm sorry, okay, something is, yeah, this is an example of what can feel important when you're reading newspaper. A very good example. There are a lot of data points here. Can you see this? Government initiatives, data points. So this feels like a lot of a good place to mine data from for your paper that is updated from the government, since the writer is also from Ministry, Union Minister for Rails and METI. But most of this is again already covered. What I would suggest is, if you think that the data is very important, you can clip it and save it for later. When you're reading that, you will realize, and when you're collating your notes, you will realize you already have all this. You don't need to make anything from it. Words like this are keywords. These you can utilize, although people who have given mains or have read through the notes will realize that Antyodaya and etc. are already being used in previous papers. If you're not, this is a keyword for you. So Antyodaya you should know. I will say read this one properly and mark it, because it's a very good example of what means by inclusive growth, what all could have come from in, what all dimensions you could have used. So you can use this one. Some data maybe you can use later on, so you can mark it and leave it for later, because when you're covering GS3. So this article I think is important to clip for later. Do not make any notes from it for now though. This is not important. And let's see. This was in news yesterday also. For this now what I will suggest is, this felt important because, you know, new project, Arunachal and all those things. So first time I read this, I highlighted this part. But when you start making notes, you realize not important. Plus, you know most of these things from prelims. What I did do was, while studying it, I tried to revise. For example, what is the act from which Forest Advisory Committee is established? Name the act. Or community forest was mentioned here. Which act defines community forest? Things like that. But that was just a mental exercise, not something you need to make notes on. This I marked for maybe I can use it as an example in ethics. So I have kind of put a mark on this thing is happening, but I'm not making notes on it because it's not that important. Let's see. This is something I think you should read, because AI is an important topic nowadays. And they have come up with some of the issues with the project. So you can read it, understand it, maybe make one line on some of the issues current AIs or limitations current AIs are facing. Just one line. That's it. That one line is actually very well written here. This is the only line. Now, in this paper, the explained part was important. Why? First was, as we discussed yesterday, Axiom 4 is going to take flight. I think it already has. So, this diagram, this explanation becomes important. Read the explanation. Again, most newspaper magazines will have it. Save the diagram. Could be useful. They have previously asked such questions from direct for science part of GS3. So I suggest at least save the diagram, maybe look at it once or twice so you know how it works. Now this one is good for environment. Why? Because the Wildlife Protection Act was recently amended and there are still issues persisting. Keep a clipping of it, don't make notes from it as of yet. Most probably magazines will cover it. If they don't, this is an important article because there can be a question in environmental law from this. Although most of this you already know for your prelims, the definition of overwhelm, that state cannot hunt scheduled animals, things like that you already know. But if you're asked to highlight issues in the current environmental laws, then this is a very good explanation. So clip the article, don't make notes from it for later when you're studying environment. If you do this, I would really suggest you to read, because this is a very good story for essay. You don't need to make any notes from it. I have highlighted things because I was reading through it. These are not important. There is no notes required. But if you remember the story, if you remember their conditions or something from this, maybe you can use it in an essay, especially as an introduction. or as an example, from the top of my head, let's say there was essay on not all who wander are lost. You could have used their name, that when they went to space, there was no destination. There is no destination in space. They were not lost. They were very important both for our country and for Earth. So you can use that, especially this example of how they even used yoga. You can use that maybe in an essay. Another example of an essay where it could have been used is the ship that never leaves the harbor. I think there was an essay on that topic. You can utilize this story there. A very good story for an essay, very in-news story. So remember this story, do not write notes on it, but you should read this article. That's about it from this paper. So if I whittle it down, today's newspaper had some good points, but what does it come down to? Notes for 11th June newspaper. From one line, first woman ADC. I don't know if the woman who spoke were first woman to brief or not, so I will not take that example because I'm not sure of it. Just for my peace of mind, I know there is a UK India FTA, but I will, to just keep in mind, I will remember it. Third thing would be from here, so I will take this line as my notes. I'll just take a screenshot and use this here. What should be the heading here? Let's see again. What are they facing? Okay. So basically, when you are checking in legal immigration, what are the issues that can possible issues? This is a list, so I can use that. I have reread this, so I'm not going to write this down. This is done. This I have read. I will write a Kerala Government and Environment Act is something I've kept a clipping on. And the last was AI. Reasoning issues as complexity increases. This is the note, that's it. You can say Apple has released a paper as a source. That's about it. Was there anything else that we felt important? Kerala government we've done, this we've done, the newspaper clipping. How astronauts reach image ISS from Earth. That's it. So this is what we got from the paper. This is it when you're adding to notes. Less than half a page of this. That's it. You did not need to make any news from it. Most of it will come from newspaper magazine. You can directly add from this. This is more to know any current affair examples that you could have used in your notes. What I will do tomorrow is tell you how to incorporate them in your notes when you're making notes from the beginning. That's it for today. That's it for today. Tomorrow's goal are going to be twofold. Since tomorrow you should be finished with your society and social justice. You should be finished. So I will take up maybe a class on PYQ, note making from these sources, how you will add them, and I will tell you what next. That's it. Let me know if I can add more things, and if you're enjoying the newspaper series, maybe I can add more of it as we move on. Thank you.